Sound okay? Good. All right.
Welcome into the Ben Burnett Show. My name is Ben Burnett. My guest today is a gentleman by the name of David Chatham. David, welcome in.
Thank you. Pleasure.
When I look at real estate in North Atlanta from a commercial development standpoint, from the old days to now, when I think about your legacy neighborhoods from Cherokee and Forsyth and Milton, Alpharetta, Roswell, your family is synonymous. I think they've built a house for every 5 residents in North Atlanta.
Thank you.
Well, talk to me just briefly. Like, how did you get into the home building business? How did that come to be? And talk to me about your family, your father, things like that. Did you have any choice, or was this always the only option?
Yeah, thank you for Ben for letting me be here today. Our company is truly a family business, and my dad started our company quite by accident in 1948. He had just come home from World War II, where he served over in England, London, during the bombing of London, and he met my mother. They were married, and about a year before he started building them a home. They both worked downtown. My father was from the North Fulton area, as you have mentioned, the Roswell, Alpharetta, Milton, Cherokee County, Forsyth County area. He grew up as a sharecropper. 5 generations of my family were very poor farmers up in that part of North Fulton and Cherokee and Forsyth, the old Milton County as well. And he came home from the war. He got a job with Fulton County, working on a survey crew, and it was a long drive from where he lived down there day after day, and he decided he wanted to build a house for he and my mother. So he bought a lot in the northern Buckhead area, kind of the Wyuka-Roswell Road area, if you're familiar with that part of Buckhead, and it was called Hardeman Road. My mother was actually a Hardeman, and this was land that belonged to her family, her uncle. And Dad convinced him to let him have a lot, and if he would loan him the money to get started, they would move in that house and pay him off. So Dad literally built that house by hand with friends from the farm. He would use farm labor on the weekends and at nights whenever he could borrow them, and they weren't busy on the farm. And they were pretty good carpenters. They were pretty good bricklayers. Pretty good tile guys. They had to do it all themselves for their own homes. Dad worked day and night on that house. He and Mother both. They'd get home in the afternoon and he'd work until dark. Mother would bring the car over and shine the headlights down into the foundations as he was digging the footings. He literally drove my grandfather's mules down Roswell Road with a scoop and scooped out that basement. And he dug his own well by hand.
That sounds
awful. He did all of that literally. And right before he was finished, he kept noticing people coming by. And right before he was finished, a guy came up and said, Howard, my dad's name was Howard. He said, "I'd really love to buy this house." And Dad said, "I'm sorry, I've been building this for me and my wife, and it's taken us months and months, and we really don't want to sell it." And he said, "No, I'm serious. I'd really like to buy it. Would you give me a price?" And he said, "Well, let me think about it," and went home and talked to my mother, who was devastated, by the way. I mean, she had worked so hard and was so excited to get to live in that house. And he said, "Look, let's go ahead and sell it, and I'll see if we can rent the basement, and then I'll buy the lot next door, and we'll build another one." And somehow he convinced her. They sold that house. I forgot the price, but it was $1,900 or something. And they moved in the basement and started that house right next door. And again, did it all by hand and did it all themselves and did it with friends and family from the farm. And lo and behold, the same thing happens the second time. And same story. Dad says, "If you'll let us rent the basement, I'll sell you this house." Third time, they finally get to move in, and my mother actually gets to live, instead of the basement, upstairs in the house. She was so thrilled. And so Dad said, to himself, there may be a business here, So he went and talked to his boss, a guy named Turner McDonald. Turner McDonald is who Georgia 400 actually is named after. And said, Turner, I'd like to have a leave of absence and see if I can do something with this building business. And Turner said, Howard, I think you're probably crazy to do this, but yeah, I want you to know, yes, okay. And if you want to come back, your job's here for you. So Dad started talking to everybody in his farming community. And every single person, he was telling me many times, said, you're crazy to leave a county job where you've got benefits and a regular job you can go to every day. And
a pension.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and Dad said, I really think I can do this. There's a lot of people looking for houses out here, and they keep coming by and coming by. Everybody but my granddad. And my granddad, Fred Chatham, who lived up on the in Roswell there and had a little farm, and he was a sharecropper on that farm. So I tell you what, Howard, if you want to start your business, my mother and I, speaking of my grandmother, have saved $500. And if you want it, you can have it to start your business.
You're hitting family great.
And he said, by the way, I think Mr. Westbrooks, who lives on the farm next door, might also help you with a little money. So Mr. Westbrooks' dad tells me also gave him $500, and with $1,000, he started what now has become Chatham Built Homes. And Dad began to build houses. You know, and I want to remind you, back in that period, there were no spec construction loans. I mean, he literally had to just tell the lumber companies and the concrete companies and all the people he bought from that if you'll let me have this material, I'll pay you as soon as I sell this house. And what Dad didn't probably totally understand at the time is he caught that post-war baby boom period where people were coming out of the war, getting married, starting families, and his business just took off. And he never went back to the county. And then along in 1955, he began to get some inventory. And he had been using a real estate company. I won't mention their name. They're not around actually anymore. And he just he couldn't sell his houses, and he was getting really worried. So he said, I'm just going to start my own company. So he hired 5 or 6 ladies and started a company called Northside Realty Associates. He rented a little space down in Buckhead at Piedmont and Roswell Road, Piedmont and Peachtree, the corner there at Piedmont and Peachtree. And with those 5 or 6 ladies, began Northside Realty, and within 6 months he had sold out everything. And he had an inventory of probably 25 houses at that time.
High cotton.
And yeah, I mean, my dad was a risk taker. And just many times to me, just threw caution to the wind. I mean, he just went for it. He had such a belief and such a dream and such a vision for the home building business that he just, kind of just took any kind of blinders off and just went for it and was extremely focused. A couple of years later, that Northside Realty business began to really take off. He couldn't look after it, so he hired a guy named Ed Isaacson in 1958. And Ed was, at the time, a young, really good realtor, and Dad had been watching him. I think Ed had actually sold some of his houses. And he went to Ed and said, Ed, look, this thing has just gotten so big, I can't look after it. Would you come and manage and come to work for me, manage Northside Realty? And it was a perfect fit. My dad was a big visionary, not a real detailed guy. Ed Isaacson was a very detailed guy, very financially focused, understood what exactly needed to be done to grow the offices financially and bring them into other markets. And Ed did an amazing job with Northside. And in time, his son, Johnny, who graduated from Georgia back in I want to say around 67, maybe in the mid-60s, Dad hired Johnny to open our East Cobb office, Northside Realty's East Cobb office. Johnny, as you know, did a tremendous job there. Ed eventually became chairman. Dad made Johnny president of Northside Realty, and the business just really exploded. It gave Dad the time to focus on the construction business. And like every builder I know, you want to do it all. So he got involved, and we had a grading contracting business. We even got in the True Value hardware store business. We had 3 True Value hardware stores. We had Advanced Electric. We had Jimco Plumbing. I mean, we got into everything, both vertically and horizontally. And but Dad's love was building houses. And we began to move from Buckhead northward to Sandy Springs, from Sandy Springs to East Cobb, from there to Dunwoody. Then we jumped across the river in the early 70s.
That was back when that was something you didn't necessarily do a lot.
No, it was a big frontier. Nobody was there. Any of the bigger builders were there. And you got to remember, Atlanta was such a much smaller market back in those days of the 60s and 70s. And if you built several houses, you were among the top few that were building in Atlanta, in a metro area. So he bought a large tract of land called Brookfield West and did his first golf course there. I was still in college. I can remember coming home and working in the golf course. I'd bring some of my buddies, and we'd pick up rocks along the fairways and rake out greens and sand traps and so forth, getting that ready to open. You mentioned country clubs, and he came over to the east side of 400 and bought a property that he was going to call Brookfield East, which later became Willow Springs. And obviously, he sold it right at the time, right before the first big recession that we experienced. And I've lived through 4 major recessions, and that was really I say the one probably that I remember most, besides the Great Recession, was that recession of the 74-75 period when all that was going on. So we continued to move northward, jumped all the way up to Forsyth County to the Polo Fields, started another golf course. Later went to Cherokee County and did Bradshaw Farm and did another golf course. And over the years, we've tried to go back and think of all the little neighborhoods when you add them all in, and we think we've developed over 150 neighborhoods and built in excess of 5,500 homes and developed thousands more lots for other builders. I guess one of the things I'm most proud of recently is that we were just selected as the Southern Living National Builder of the Year, and it's the first time a home builder in Georgia has ever had that award, and we're very proud of that, and very proud of my family. I have 3 sons now that are in the business, and they're going to do a lot better job than me or my dad have done. So that's a quick history of.
One of the things that I think so your family to me has, I will just tell you if you're listening, the Chatham family is the most humble group of people that they don't necessarily need to be humble. The attitude of your family and your kids is, if I had that level of success, I don't know that I could exude the presence that you guys have. And I think that is a tremendous testament. And it's, as far as I know, y'all have always been that way. It's always.
Oh, thank you.
I have nasty comments as a city council member every week. And I tell everybody, if they ask me about you, I said, that guy has never said a cross word, even when I knew I made him mad. And I think that is a tremendous testament. Talk to me about how you get to a place. So I went to Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama, which for, probably 100 years sat next door to Southern Progress, which owns Southern Living magazine. And so every girl that was a journalism-esque major went to work for that magazine.
Yeah.
And it still carries. It's the Better Homes and Gardens and Southern Living are the 2 magazines that my mother still. I mean, she'll die, and I don't know that. I think that's probably in a trust somewhere to just continue paying for a Southern Living membership. That is that is very, very high praise for my audience that's doesn't subscribe to publications like your family used to. But talk to me about how you get to a place where you enter into a contest like that, and how they go through that selection process and who you compete against. You guys have done work that's been featured on TV shows that is all covered nationwide. Talk about how you get selected and how rarefied the air of having that title is. And you won't because you're humble, but you need to.
It's funny. That was never a goal. It was never something we strived to do. Is to be. I mean, I didn't even. Candidly, when we we were told we were selected in this particular award, my secretary came in and said, "Hey, we got an insurance meeting. All hands on deck. Everybody has to be here." And so I had to get all my guys to come in, my sons plus a couple of our employees, and Valerie, who was my assistant, lined it all up. We all got in a little room, and we had a little video screen for an insurance meeting. All of a sudden, the screen lights up, and they say, "Hey, congratulations, this is not an insurance meeting. You've just been selected as Builder of the Year for Southern Living magazine." And everybody in that room was so shocked. I mean, we had never thought about that. We didn't apply for that. We didn't. It just came, you know. And I think the overarching answer to your question, yeah, we've worked hard and we've tried to give back to the community. I served in all the capacities pretty much for the Home Builders Association. My son Gabe now is just the recent past president of the Home Builders Association. My dad was involved in that as well to some degree. We've tried to give back to the realtors. It's just something you do, you enjoy. There's camaraderie in our business. You learn from people. You try to help folks. And it's not striving for awards and things like that. It's just working hard, trying to do the right thing, and really do things you enjoy. We love building places for people to raise their families and have great experiences and memories. And I love the stories. I get them. I had a lady call me the other day, very older lady, and she said, "David, your dad built my house back in 1957, and my husband's died, and we love our house, and I'm getting pretty old, but I'm having a little trouble with my roof, and I don't know what to do." And I said, "Hey, give me your address. I'll send our roofer down and let him take a look at it, and we'll figure out how to help you." And now she paid for that. I'm not saying we did the work. But
sure, it was 100 years
her.
old.
Yeah, we assisted. I mean, yeah. And, you know, that brings a lot of joy to us to be able to help someone like that, and it's just something we do. And awards, I think, just kind of come with that. Now, we worked hard to do home expos, and we were, had the Home of the Week in Southern Living, and we did apply for some of those opportunities. But it promoted the brand, promoted our neighborhoods, promoted our builder group that were building with us in those neighborhoods. But it was not the goal, is my point. It just came, as part of working hard and trying to do the right thing.
I want to talk to you briefly. I want to step back because at some point you get interested in commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. And you are widely known as somebody who is your family, their legacy is certainly home builder focused. Talk to me about when you put down roots here, and I know all your boys live in Cherokee County, and so we can fight about that later. Mm-hmm. But what about North Fulton? What about it makes you guys develop single-family homes galore in Milton? You go to Hickory Flat. You have lots of property. What is it about this area that makes, and I won't say Alpharetta, I think in the time I've sat on the city council, you guys have only brought one project forward, and I don't think you needed us for zoning conditioning. I think you were trying to gate a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. What is it about the market and where you are? Because as you hear from a city council perspective, and Alpharetta's got several central business districts, and it's more and more dense, and that is not what you guys do and are known for. And you're as relevant today as you have ever been. So how do you continue? How do you site select? What goes into that process? Because you don't just decide you're going to build homes at some latitude and longitude. Talk to me about the preparation and the thoughtful approach that you guys take to site selecting. And, somebody like me, where are you guys looking next?
Right. Yeah, well, you go to where the growth is headed. I used to teach a course in land planning and zoning for the Georgia Realtors. And there's a theory that says that cities grow the opposite direction of the prevailing river. So in our case, the Chattahoochee River flows south, and the growth in Atlanta went north. And you look at somebody like Jacksonville, where the river flows north, and the growth started in the south. Not to say it doesn't go south or north later. But if you look at our company, we started basically in Buckhead and grew north, and Atlanta began to grow north. And the transportation corridors were north. And if you look at 400, 75, and 85, we've tried to stay, for the most part, on the west side of 400 and on the east side of 75, 575. And that's an area that, number one, my dad grew up in Northwest.
You knew it.
Yeah, that was roots for him. And I can remember we would look at property in the early days when we came to Roswell and Alpharetta, and Dad say, I used to plow this area. Or we used to go over here and buy, we'd sell our cotton and our corn at these areas, and we had farms and gardens all around. And he would just beam with pride, and I did too, just because I grew, I'd go to my grandparents and experience a lot of that farming background. So it was home for us. And he was so proud of Brookfield because it's where he grew up, and it was a place that he loved. He loved the people. He knew most of these old families. Still, we know some of these older families that are around here. And, I'll give credit to Alpharetta City Council, for example, for the vision that they had that this growth was coming, and they embraced it. They opened with open arms. They wanted as many intersections on Georgia 400 as was allowed, and they wanted to really take advantage of the opportunities that were coming, the northern direction of growth. And so we've watched that. We try to do studies of where things are going. We have a price point that we are really best at. We're more custom, higher-end builders.
Oh, that is an understatement of a lifetime.
However, we can, we can build other products and other price points. It's not our bread and butter, but we can do that. So some of our neighborhoods have been mixed-use type neighborhoods where we had a commercial element, we had a shopping center element, we had an office element, and then we had primarily a residential element. And we would either team up with someone who we knew was really good and had a vision for the commercial piece or the townhomes, or we, would dabble a little bit in a product that was not too far off of what we typically would do. So, we continue to do focus groups with, both homeowners and realtors and bankers and read a lot and try to understand where this market is, where it's going. And you just get in front of the growth. And we've been pioneers. We get accused of that a lot, I'll never forget, we got so much flack when we went to Forsyth County with Polo. Like, you guys are crazy. You were crazy when you went to Roswell and you jumped over the river and did Brookfield and Saddle Creek and those neighborhoods. Now you've lost your mind. You're going all the way up to Forsyth County to start this neighborhood. And
it's a huge neighborhood.
It's a big neighborhood, yeah. And however, and those neighborhoods take a long time because they're large tracts of land, and you go through recessions and you have, you struggle through those periods. But, back in 1991, we kind of shrunk the company down. We sold Northside Realty. We sold some other things and focused strictly on our building side. We moved our offices from Sandy Springs up to Roswell and later where we are now at Alpharetta, Wynwood Parkway. And I changed our model a little bit. We used to be the only builder in every neighborhood that we did. So I started bringing in outside builders. We would approve those builders. We approved the plans and specifications, exterior colors, materials, landscaping, and created that theme that would run throughout the neighborhood that everybody, when they would drive in, say, man, I don't know what it is. This place just feels good. It feels like home. And so that way we could share the risk, and we also could develop larger tracts of land and do a little bigger and more volume. And that worked really well till the Great Recession.
I want to stop you there because it's easy to look at a company in a family like yours and think that there aren't bad days or hard days. And I know that is not the case. Can you talk to me about when the Great Recession happened and commercial lending largely just dissipated in, I would say a week, but it might have been even less time than that. And people were calling loans, and you had to be, not that you didn't have faith that it would work out, but that doesn't mean you were not nervous. Can you talk about just, and I think it's interesting because there are entrepreneurs that listen to my show that live out here, but to listen to a guy who's that is on the other side of that, but knows that they're not going to be on the other side of that forever because it will find you again. How do you navigate difficult circumstances? And talk to me about what you guys did to get by during the Great Recession. And it feels hilarious to ask somebody who's built 5,500 homes about how you navigate a hard time. But what strategically do you lean on? What are those conversations like? How do you make the decision to say, not now, we're going to give this up, we'll sell this at a reduced cost? Because I'm sure that is painful.
Yeah, that's the toughest period in our business life by far. It's certainly mine. As I mentioned earlier, I really thought we had diversified enough and had more people involved. I thought to myself, any 5 builders can go down, because I had 51 builders in my builder program, independent builders who built custom homes. And we had, at the time the recession hit, we had 16 new neighborhoods, plus I had some raw land and second, third phases of those neighborhoods.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You sold the land that Cambridge High School is on.
Yes. Yeah, that was actually the first time I realized this recession was really here to stay. I had developed the first phase. I won't mention the 2 builders and they had contracted for those lots, and had gone through zoning, got it all worked out. Had the first phase that padded out the lots for them. It was a density type of a neighborhood, and they came to me 2 weeks before the closing. And I'll never forget, one of them actually started crying in my office and said, "I'm so sorry, David, but all my loans are being called in Florida. I'm in trouble here. I can't, they're not going to let me close this. And you've gone to all this trouble. I know you've developed all this."
And that's a good guy coming in your office.
A good guy. I mean, a terrific guy. And I just sat there like stunned. And I said, "Hey, that happens to everybody. I mean, it's okay. We'll figure out what to do here. I understand. I'm so sorry." And I mean, I really was sorry for him. Florida, went into this a little sooner than Georgia. And I thought, well, I'll start calling guys and see who else would want these lots. And Ben, I'm not exaggerating. I called one after the other, and they said, "Hey, David, I'm worried it's going to happen to me. My lenders are saying they want me to finish up and get this stuff sold, or they're going to take it back." I said, "What?" And one after the other, and it just sort of like was dominoes began to fall. That property, I was I was on my knees praying about what are we going to do here. I brought my family in, my boys, and we all sat down. I said, "Look, this thing is pretty serious, and I'm not even sure if we can get through it." And I said, I could even lose my house. I mean, I got all these neighborhoods and all this debt and all these builders, and every one of them, one by one, are going down, and they're going down quickly. And everything I had was sold or was spoken for, which I thought, how safe could that be? And my lenders were the same way. Well, the first thing that happened, a couple of these guys go down. Then my lender calls and says, "I think we're going to go down. We're going to be taken over by RTC or FDIC." And I thought, oh my gosh, what else can happen? So we all buckled down, and I went to every one of my lenders one by one. I guess you have 2 choices in these times. You can lawyer up and just say, "Come after me. I'm fighting every step of the way." But our style was more, "Hey, let's sit down across the table. This is the deal you have. This is the debt we have. This is how many lots we have. I'll try to sell these at a discount, and if you'll let me either short sell them or pay you in time or let me build out of them, I think we can get through it." And literally, I don't know how many lenders we had, 6, 8 lenders at that time. One by one, we did that, and they just worked with us, and we settled every loan. Now, we did some deed in lieu on things, and we did a few things where we had to just to kind of get through it. But by and large, we either built through it or sold it at some type of a discount, and were able to settle every one of those loans. It took a long time, and we all worked extremely hard I cut my staff down to basically just family, and we hunkered down and we were cleaning out, sewer manholes and sweeping streets and whatever we had to do, cutting grass, just to get through this. And it's only by the grace of God, and I'm say that very seriously. I have a strong faith, and that we got through this. And people ask me, how did you get through all of that? And I said, I don't even want to go back and try to remember it. It was so painful. But I said, we just sat down and tried to work with good people. And sometimes people weren't as easy as others, and you just had to try to battle through it and do your best. And I think people realize when you're sincere, you're trying to do the very best you can, and they tend to try to work with you as much as they can. And again, they can't do but so much. But that, in kind of a nutshell, is how we slowly went through this. And unfortunately, a lot of my builders didn't make it. A lot of them got out of the business. Some of them quit completely, and a few of them are back. And they're looking for lots. So we're back at it, much wiser and hopefully smarter about how to go about it.
I want to tell my favorite, and I did not ask you if I could share this story, but I'm going to share it anyway. The day in March of 2020 where the markets really, and look, once you've lived through 2007 to 2010, I'm sure you never unforget how that feels. And you called me as I don't know if you were just trying to call to find sympathetic people. That's all we all do it.
Right.
And you said you were the first person who told me that when COVID really happened, that you had to let somebody go in your office, and that you just, at the end of the day, you knew you had to do the right thing for your family, and you knew you had to do the right thing for your business. But I've never had more respect for anyone than to hear the sheer, just heartbroken emotion in your voice. Because whether it's $30,000 salary or 40 or 50 or pick it, if it's all somebody has, it matters to you. And you took that so incredibly personally that I was like, I wish that guy'd run for president. And it was just the sincerity of, by all accounts, y'all have made it. And you'll never acknowledge that with a response, but to hear the concern that you have for every individual person, no fault of your own kind of thing. You gotta make a difficult choice, and how, I know you don't sleep when stuff like that happens, because it's somebody's whole life. You only have one.
Yep.
I want to transition here. 2021, especially probably in the last 6 months, I've never seen real estate sell like it has sold. Can you talk through what just the price escalations, the building material costs, the different challenges that you face when things are candidly probably too good? You have a neighborhood on Hopewell Road. It's the one that I'm intimately, look, I will make no bones about it. Since the day David Chatham has zoned that neighborhood, I've said, I want one of those houses. Can you do one for $300,000? And he says, no. I'm not done trying. I just need about 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
Chatham built 1,200 square feet. We'll go back to the old days. Talk to me about your vision and where you think things are and are going. And I realize that you have industry expertise that isn't. Do you see it slowing down anytime soon? How do you get control of building costs? And how do you guys plan around that? And do people even care? Are they just willing to just max out the credit card and go buy one?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. Let's go back to 2020 when COVID hit. I think for all of us, it sort of took our breath away. That suddenly, I'll never forget. I got out in my car. I stayed in the home, in the house. They shut everything down. I stayed home for a couple of days. I thought, I got to get out of here. So I got out and I started driving around, and there was nobody on the roads.
It's crazy, like a snowstorm.
It scared me. It was like there's no place open, and of course, I was in touch with some of my contractors and personnel, and they were all afraid to get. I said, "We're not supposed to leave the house." I said, "No, don't leave the house. Do what they tell you." But it was it was just weird. And this is the most interesting market. And again, I've been through major recessions, major, improved markets that came back strong. But never have I seen something go from 0 to 100 in that short a period of time. When you look back, we had been underbuilding this market since the Great Recession.
On purpose.
Yeah, I mean, everybody had their antenna up to be careful. And when that pandemic was announced, nearly all the major builders began to pull back. They thought a recession may be coming. They started pulling back. They started shutting down in some cases. And it just exacerbated the problem that we had of low inventory already that was beginning to happen. And of course, nobody's buying anything. The mortgage company, everybody was scared to death. But once that, switch flipped and we began, to get back out again, and people began to look around and begin to kind of go to a restaurant here or there or drive through or whatever they did, the demand was just ramped up so quickly. And you look back, it's been well chronicled that, it was a perfect storm. We had the lowest interest rates in history, probably one of the lowest inventories ever, greatest demand. And then the advent of home offices, the advent of people, they were cooped up in their house for months and started realizing this house is too small and these kids are getting on my nerves and I need an office and I need a bigger lot and a bigger house. And they realized they didn't probably have to go to work every single day. They might have to go in 1 or 2 days a week, but they could work from home. And they started moving to the suburbs. That whole thing began. And when you look back, it just all, and today, we've got the same situation still going on. In my opinion, we're going to have low inventory for a while because you just can't ramp up fast enough. People literally were saving their money during the pandemic. There was a year there that nobody spent any money. They're ready to spend. There is so much cash on the sidelines right now wanting to invest either in the stock market or buy a new house or buy a new car. But when the sawmills shut down, we couldn't get materials. When the chip makers couldn't make chips for cars, all these things began to happen. And again, it's well documented. But we're finally beginning in our business to see building materials come back down. The sawmills are open back up. The second big wave of a problem in this whole thing is labor shortages. People want to produce.
Especially among craftsmen.
Yes. And they're having a hard time getting people to come back to work. That's going to change. So you ask about cost. New home costs are up over the last, I say 18 months now, actually it's been a little more than a year, about 72%, which is just ridiculous. Never in my life seen that. And that's unsustainable. That's not going to happen over and over, year after year, because costs are beginning to come down. People are beginning slowly to come back to work. And you're going to see that cost of construction come back down, maybe never as low as it was pre-pandemic, but it's certainly going to come back down. We'll continue to build and eventually catch up, I think, on inventory, but it's going to be, I think, at least 2 to 3 years. So I see this market being pretty strong. Unlike the other recessions that I referred to earlier, the fundamentals of this market are good. We've had .com, recessions. We've had real estate recessions where we overbuilt the market. Typically, that happens a lot. We've had interest rate recessions when interest rates went to 22%, back in the, 70s and 80s. But this short-lived recession for the pandemic had never happened before, certainly in our lifetime. And to see how quickly it's come back, it's caught everybody flat-footed. The suppliers can't get stuff out. People want to move. They can't buy houses. Builders want to build. They can't get materials. They can't get labor. So, again, I think we got a runway of at least another 2 to 3 years. I don't see rates really moving up a lot. You can get a mortgage right now for 2 to 3%. When I'm embarrassed to tell you, when I was president of the home builders in 1985, it's in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I said, you'll never see single-digit mortgage rates ever again. You need to go ahead and buy a house at
Did you quit making
16%.
Did you quit making absolute statements after that?
People call me and remind me of that. I have old buddies that call me and said, Chatham, remember the time you made that statement? I said it and believed it at that moment. But if you'd have told me then that in 2021 I could get a 15-year mortgage that started with a 1, I would have said, free money, huh?
So to that point, one of the Carl and I have talked about this over the course. So when the pandemic happened, I started emailing people of influence, and I don't mean like you have influence. I mean like Anthony Fauci, Jamie Dimon, like, because
real influence.
I mean like run for president kind of influence. Yeah. And I had, it was about a month ago, and we were looking. I think that this is the buying opportunity of a lifetime, knowing that inflation is on your heels. And if you're a city like Alpharetta, it's unbelievably creditworthy. And your AAA credit rating will get you 30-year money at 1.4% interest. And I was like, they're paying you to take it.
Yes.
And so I emailed Jamie Dimon. I will send this to Carl. And I said, hey, this is kind of the situation that I find myself in. And I said, if you ever have, I don't even know if this will cross your desk. If it does, and you have 5 minutes, call me. And it's 2 days later, and I see JP Morgan Chase on my thing. And I was like, that guy's the king. He is the king. And I said, hey, I got a question for you about this. And he said, I've got family that lives down there. I go run it. He goes, every once in a while I'll go run at the horse park. And I was like,
no way.
He was like, you guys have, he goes, what a great place to live. And I said, well, what do you think about taking, money? And he's like, how's your credit? And I was like, AAA credit. And he was like, well, there can't be but 100 of you in the country as a municipality. And he said, he's like, I'm just talking to you as a banker, not knowing anything about your tax digest. But he goes, if you could take $300 million, I'd take it all. And I was like,
wow.
Why would you say that? He goes, you can rebuild everything. He goes, it'll catch up. You got games you can play with the interest rates. And I mean, that's all beyond me and you.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, well, Jamie Dimon feels good about it. I guess
that is a great story.
I guess I do too. And so that was probably the best phone call back, because I was like, he is calling me.
Yeah,
I know that's him.
That's unbelievable.
And I said, hey, I sit on the other side of your political leanings, but I said, we need good business-minded people on the left. And I said, if you ever run for president, I hope you call me. And he said, well, I've kicked it around a couple of times. And he's like, I've got some health. He's like, I've had some health issues. And he goes, I think I've put that all to bed. And I was like, well, I guess, Jamie, it's great talking to you. I guess they interview you on 60 Minutes every 6 months. I guess I'll see you then.
What a great story. Wow.
But I think that there is a tremendous amount of future. So let me ask you this, and we will close here. You said you stay between 575 and 400. Strategic planning and knowing that, Warren Jolly or whoever's out there that's going to go compete with you on tracts of land, y'all don't really compete with each other. But where would you, if you're looking today, what community do you think is next?
Let me first, if I could, regrab. Sorry, I keep going back like this, but North Fulton County, in my opinion, is one of the strongest markets in the country by far. You zero in on Alpharetta, and we go to these, relocation conferences around the country. Alpharetta is a poster child for most relocation, companies in the country, and because of the technology and the lifestyle, and Alpharetta and North Fulton generally are right at the top. And I'm very thankful that we're building in this market, and we will never hopefully have to leave this market, whether it's Alpharetta or Milton or where. However, if you move out a little bit, we also are developing in the southeast Cherokee County market. I got 2 new neighborhoods in Forsyth. I think, again, if you stay, going north into Dawson is another great opportunity. I got a little too far out, before the Great Recession. So I told myself I'm not going to go quite as far out this next time around.
You were building in Clayton?
I was way up 85. I was way up there. But I think those markets are strong markets that are coming. And again, a lot of it is the advent of the home office and being able to work from home. And people can get a little further out, get a little more house, a little more land, and not have to go into their office every day. And I think big employers are understanding that. And, of course, they had to adjust and adapt. And some of that will never go away. We're going to have a certain amount of that lifestyle from now on, I think. So my heart's in North Fulton County, and I love this market. And it's where I've grown up, and it's home. And stuff sells here. What do you say? It's, this product sells. But I think moving Cherokee, Forsyth, Dawson are probably on our radar most right now.
Well, David Chatham, it is an honor and a privilege to sit here and walk through your life, your family legacy, where you see market conditions. And if y'all don't know, sometimes you have people that come on and you immediately know who they are. If you don't, get your Google out and research Mr. Chatham, because the things that his family has accomplished in real estate and I'm telling you, they are the most gentle, kind-spirited people that you could ever run across. And I'm honored to be friends with you, David.
I feel the same way, Ben. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for coming in. We'll see you guys next week on the Ben Burnett Show. Have a good day, everybody.